Welcome. From the very beginning of the United States, there's been this constant tug of war over one single question. Just how powerful is the American president really? It's a debate that has shaped the country's history, and frankly, it's more relevant today than ever. So today, we're going to get right into the heart of it.
It seems like such a straightforward question, right? But the answer, well, that's a whole different story. It's really a battleground of ideas. Is the president this all-powerful leader, or are they constantly boxed in by checks and balances? How we answer that question really changes everything for the future of American democracy.
This fear that the presidency has gotten too big for its britches, that it's become this kind of monster that the Constitution can't control anymore, that's not a new idea, not at all. In fact, it's got a name.
Yeah, it's called the imperial presidency. The term was first used way back in 1973 by the historian Arthur Schlesinger Jr. He was basically sounding the alarm during the Nixon years, saying, hey, presidents are taking powers meant for war and using them right here at home, and that, he warned, could break the whole system.
And you can see why this fear sticks around. Just look at the parallels here. Nixon's Watergate and the investigations into the Trump campaign. The methods were different, sure. We're talking burglary versus hacking, but the targets were similar. And the response from the president? Firing the person in charge of the investigation. It's these kinds of historical rhymes that keep this whole imperial presidency debate feeling so urgent.
But here's the flip side. What if this imperial presidency is all just a myth? There's a whole other school of thought that says there's a huge check on presidential power we tend to forget about.
So what if the biggest check on a president isn't Congress and it's not the courts? What if it's you, the public? That's the whole idea behind the work of Cornell professor Douglas Kreiner. He basically argues that what really keeps presidents in line is the fear of public backlash, the fear of you voting them and their party out of office.
And you can see this play out over and over. Think about Bill Clinton. His original plan for gays in the military hit a wall of public and political opposition, so he ended up with don't ask, don't tell. Or think about how the Trump administration reversed its family separation policy after this huge, widespread public outcry. The point is, these aren't just one-offs. They're examples of the system working just as Kreiner describes.
Okay, so if public opinion is the big external brake on presidential power, it raises a really interesting question. What if a president could find a way to just bypass it? Is there a way to build a presidency that's basically insulated from all that outside pressure? A way to change the power structure from the inside?
Well, that's exactly where this idea, the unitary executive theory, comes into play. It's a legal concept that's been bubbling up in conservative circles for a long time, and it's essentially a blueprint for a much, much stronger presidency. To put it simply, the unitary executive theory says the president, and the president alone, is in charge of the entire executive branch. The logic comes from Article 2 of the Constitution, which says the executive power shall be vested in a president. Proponents take that to mean all of it, no ifs, ands, or buts.
So the folks who back this theory, they really hang their hats on a couple of key phrases from the Constitution. There's the vesting clause we just mentioned, and then there's the take care clause, which says the president has to make sure laws are faithfully executed. They argue that to do that job, you need total control. It creates a clean, clear chain of command, right from the top down.
But of course, there's a whole other side to this coin. Critics say, hold on a minute, what about Article 1? That's the part that gives Congress the power to create and shape all those government departments in the first place. They argue the framers wanted a bit of a messy system with overlapping powers, precisely to stop any one person from grabbing too much control. To them, this theory isn't a blueprint for efficiency, it's a roadmap to authoritarianism.
So, how do you take a dense legal theory like this and turn it into an actual, real-world plan? Well, that's where Project 2025 comes in. It's this incredibly detailed blueprint put together by conservative groups and led by the Heritage Foundation that's designed to make the unitary executive theory a reality on day one of a new conservative administration.
And this is no small operation. We're talking about a project with a $22 million budget. It's a massive effort to have a government in waiting ready to go at a moment's notice.
The whole thing is built around this old Reagan-era saying, personnel is policy. And the idea is actually pretty simple. If you want to control what the government does, you first have to control the people who work in it.
So what's the game plan? It breaks down into 3 basic steps. Step 1, build a huge database of conservatives who've been pre-vetted and are ready to serve. Step 2, fire tens of thousands of the career government employees who are there now. And step 3, plug the loyalists from your database into those empty jobs to make sure the president's orders are carried out, no questions asked.
And let's get specific. Look at what this would mean for an agency like the Department of Justice. Traditionally, the DOJ is supposed to be independent, above partisan politics. But under this plan, it would be directly accountable to the president. The FBI would investigate based on the president's priorities, and the Civil Rights Division would shift to prosecuting things the project calls anti-white racism. It's a fundamental change.
And the policies this new government would push for are just sweeping. We're talking about dismantling entire departments like education and homeland security, rolling back environmental rules, and using the federal government to push a specific social agenda, things like criminalizing abortion pills and infusing Christian nationalist ideas into the government. It's a total transformation.
So at the end of the day, we're looking at two totally different visions for how a president's power should work. In one corner, you have the president as a powerful but ultimately limited figure, kept in check by the American people. And in the other, you have a detailed plan for a supercharged presidency, one that's shielded from that public pressure. The future of the American government really hangs on which of these visions wins out.
It really boils down to this. On one side, you have the political check, the idea that presidents are always worried about public opinion and the next election. And on the other, you have a structural blueprint, a plan to rebuild the government from the inside out so it doesn't have to worry about that backlash.
This is so much more than some academic debate. It's a fundamental question about what America is. Is the power of the president defined by the limits we place on it, or is it defined by the will and the plan to overcome those limits? That's not a question that's going to be answered in a classroom. It's going to be answered by the American people. And that answer will define the country for generations to come.